The 2021 Australian Fitness and Recreation Industry Technology Summit has new offerings to add even greater value to the event. And that new offering is a monthly webinar series with simply amazing and incredible guests full of knowledge to help you run your fitness business better. The event is on July the 21st and 22nd in Sydney, and it's quite highly likely it will be the first face-to-face big event in Australia. We should have a packed room with a bunch of owners and managers who are keen to learn all about technology and work out how we can use it moving forward to make our businesses more efficient and more effective. And it will be better because we've had 2 years to plan for this one. So we've got great new keynote speakers, we've got panels, we've got workshops, and just this week, we announced our COVID guarantee. So if COVID impacts your attendance through restrictions or lockdown at the live event, you can receive a full refund or transfer to 2022. So there's no reason to be scared about registering. You can get your tickets right now at fitnessindustrytechsummit.com.au. And this month's webinar is going to be what we would call in Australia a dead set cracker. Annette Franz is going to join us where she's going to be talking about increasing member retention using the Amazon effect. So let me tell you about Annette first. With almost 30 years in the customer experience profession, Annette Franz, CCXP, I wonder if she'll tell us what that means, is founder and CEO of CX Journey Incorporated. She started her career at JD Power and Associates and spent much of the next 25 years leading consulting services for the major voice of the customer platforms, helping clients in a variety of industries. She's also worked on a client-side customer experience strategy for Mattel, Fidelity Investments, and Compelling. Annette is an internationally recognized customer experience thought leader. In fact, this is her third webinar this week for Australian businesses. She's a coach, a keynote speaker, and author you'll see over her shoulder of Customer Understanding, 3 ways to put customer in customer experience and at the heart of your business. In this book, she outlines the importance of customer understanding to develop a customer-centric culture. She's a certified customer experience professional and an official member of the Forbes Coaching Council. So, ladies and gentlemen, be rest assured, this lady knows her stuff. Welcome, Annette. Great to have you. And you look refreshed and relaxed after a week at Vegas. Not many people come back looking as good as you do after going to Vegas for a week.
I've had 5 days to recover, so that's why. You didn't see me Saturday morning when I got back.
Okay, that makes good sense. And you are going to talk to us today about really boosting our member retention using the Amazon effect. And for people that don't know, before we go into that, you've done work in the fitness industry before, haven't you?
I have, yes. Yes, I have. I have worked with Gold's Gym here in the US, obviously, Export Fitness, Lifetime Fitness. Yeah, so I've done a bit of work with the fitness industry here in the United States.
So the most important thing, ladies and gentlemen, listening today, is this is not coming from somebody who has sat in an ivory tower, written a book, and not got down in the trenches of our industry. It's coming from someone who genuinely knows about the importance of retention, technology, people, and that whole equation in order to make our businesses successful. So Annette, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you for not sharing that I used to be a competitive bodybuilder too. I really appreciate. Oh.
I was going to say that, but I was like, no, people want to start Googling you in the middle of this presentation.
My face is nice and red now. All right. Well, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that awesome introduction. And thank you for inviting me into this webinar series. I'm really excited to talk about this topic today. It is my passion to talk about all things customer experience, all things member experience, and then fitness. I really have a sweet place in my heart for the fitness industry as well. So thank you for that. I'm going to go off camera while I share my my presentation, just because I've had some technical issues, and especially as Justin mentioned, I've had 2 events this week with Australian clients, and it's been a little bit of a mess in terms of our bandwidth. So let me do that, and then I'm going to share my presentation. So I will see you back when we do questions at the end. Awesome. Excellent. All right. As Justin said, I'm going to talk about how to increase member retention using the Amazon effect. Real quickly, I am not going to read this slide, but I will answer your question about what does CCXP stand for. And you actually mentioned it. It stands for Certified Customer Experience Professional. It's a certification that is offered through the Customer Experience Professionals Association, which is a global professional association for customer experience professionals. So there you have it. It's a great certification that really showcases that you have experience in this space, and it's a pretty rigorous exam to pass. So, alrighty, so let's go ahead and dive in, get started. I always like to start with definitions. What is customer experience, right? And I know this is the fitness space, so we talk a lot about member experience. So forgive me, I will probably use the 2 interchangeably. I'll talk about customers. I'll use the word member. I'll do all of that. And I was trying to equate it to what that would be here in the U.S. We call it Spanglish, right? When we talk Spanish and English at the same time. So I will I will mix the 2. So please bear with me. All right. So what is customer experience? It really is the sum of all the interactions that a customer has with a brand over the life of the relationship with that brand, and probably even more importantly, the feelings, the emotions, and the perceptions that the customer has about those interactions and about the brand itself. But we can't talk about what customer experience is without talking about what it is not. And it's definitely not customer service, customer care, customer success, customer satisfaction, or customer marketing. And the one that I really want to call out here that's often used interchangeably is customer service. Customer service is often used in place of customer experience and vice versa, but they are not one and the same. Customer service is one of those interactions that I mentioned in the definition of customer experience. And I like to use the definition or distinction that a gentleman here in the States, his name is Chris Zane, he is the founder of Zane Cycles, uses. His definition is service is what happens when the experience breaks down. So service is what happens when the experience breaks down. Customer experience is also not technology. Technology is not the experience. And I'll talk a little bit about technology later on in the presentation, so I won't spend a lot of time on that here. And also, customer experience isn't just about what happens at the front line, right? It's not just about what happens when a member checks in at the front desk, or it's not just about what happens with the personal trainer or anybody, any of your other employees that are on the floor. It's also about what happens in the back office. Your back office employees impact and affect and help to deliver the experience almost as much as that frontline does. So it's not just about what's happening with the people that are face to face with your customers. Why should we focus on customers and the customer experience, right? Well, first and foremost, obviously, without customers, we have no business, right? They really are the lifeblood of the business. But then we have to think about, in a world where products and services are really becoming more and more commoditized every day, customer experience is that one true differentiator. You want to win customers and keep customers, and in order to do that, you've got to deliver a great experience. Customers have expectations of what those experiences look like, right? And that's a really good transition into the Amazon effect. So let's just dive right in. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this upfront stuff. I want to get to the meat of the presentation. So what is the Amazon effect? This is a quote from a couple of years ago. As a matter of fact, I remember using this quote at an event that I spoke at when I was in Sydney back in 2017, talking about the new normal, right? What is the new normal? And it's an amazing quote, right? Amazon's focus is to create an experience so magical that it disappears into our customers every day as their new normal. Many of the expectations that customers have about their experiences today, doesn't matter what industry we're talking about, right? Those stem from their experience with Amazon. And that's become their new normal, whether they're doing business with Amazon or they're interacting with some other brand in some other industry, right? That's what the Amazon effect is all about. That disruption that Amazon created in the retail space really has bled into other industries and has become that frame of reference for our customers, for their expectations, and for the experiences that, they basically expect to have regardless of who they're doing business with. So, oops, sorry, wrong button. So that is the new normal, right? The new normal is that their expectations today are fast, convenient, easy, effortless, frictionless, simple, personalized, instant gratification. It's all about instant gratification, right? Both in B2C and B2B situations, right? So your members expect these types of interactions with you, but so do your vendors, your partners, your licensees, right? Their expectations across the board. So what does that mean for you? Well, that means that we're going to leverage the Amazon effect to improve the member experience and increase member retention. There are 7 things that we're going to borrow from Amazon's business model and implement those in your business in the coming days, right? I'm going to walk you through each one of these. So I'm not going to talk about them here on this slide. This is what we're going to talk about over the next 30 minutes or so. All right, so the number one learning from Amazon, and I don't think this is going to surprise anybody, is to be customer centric, actually to be customer obsessed. Jeff Bezos has always been customer obsessed, and it served him well, and it has served Amazon really well. There was an interview that he did back in 2018 where he said the secret sauce of Amazon, the number one thing that has made us successful by far, is an obsessive, compulsive focus on the customer. But how do we drive that obsession throughout the organization so that every employee obsesses over the customer, right? That's the challenge, right? In order to do that, you have to build a culture that is deliberately designed to be customer centric. But what does that mean? Customer centricity is customer centric, one of those terms that gets thrown around a lot where people say, oh, I just wrote a customer centric email, or I just did this and it was customer centric. Well, customer centricity and being customer centric, really the culture is at the foundation of it, right? It is woven throughout your organization. It's organization wide. It's not something that just happens, it's not just an individual effort, right? It's a mindset shift, it's a behavior shift, and it's a culture shift for most organizations. Everything that the company does, the customer is at the heart of, right? And that includes hiring, firing, decision-making. When you're developing your processes and when you're writing up your policies, the customer is at the heart of that. How will that affect the customer? How will that affect the employee? Which means how will that ultimately affect the customer as well? I like to say, no discussions, no decisions, no designs without bringing that customer voice into it, right? Without first asking, how is that going to impact the customer? How is it going to make her feel? What value does it add for her? What problem does it solve for her? It really, truly means that the business does everything with the customer's best interests in mind. And again, that's a shift. It's a shift for a lot of organizations because they don't do this today. A mindset shift, a behavior shift, and a culture shift. The benefits are real, both for employees and for customers, but ultimately then for the business. So some of the key principles of customer centricity are shown on this slide, right? Number one is, as I mentioned, it is a culture. Culture is at the foundation. And what is culture? Culture is all about core values plus behaviors. If you have core values defined for your brand, for your club, make sure that you also have the behaviors associated with each of those core values defined, right? And core values can't just be posters on a wall. People have to live and breathe the core values as well. The second thing that's really important is that employees really do come more first. Employees and the employee experience drive the customer experience. And I don't spend a lot of time in this presentation about the employees and the employee experience, but they are so critical to delivering a great customer experience. The third thing is that we need to put people before profits, before products, and before metrics. And I'll talk a little bit about the metrics piece in just a second. The fourth principle of customer-centric culture is customer understanding. It really is the cornerstone of customer centricity. There are 3 ways to do that, and I will talk about those in an upcoming slide here. Number 5 is outside in thinking and doing. Outside in means that we bring the customer voice into everything we do. And then finally, It's all about the platinum rule. Never mind the golden rule. It's all about the platinum rule, which really means that we need to treat customers the way that they want to be treated. And I think this is really sort of an underlying, piece of thread that goes through this entire conversation about being customer obsessed and being customer centric. So I mentioned that a customer-centric culture is a mindset shift, a behavior shift, and a culture shift. And how do we do that? That doesn't just happen on its own, right? How do we facilitate that shift? So I thought I'd put together a couple of ideas that that you guys might be able to put into play pretty quickly. So number one, this first thing is an empty chair. This was really popularized by Jeff Bezos. He has an empty chair in his executive staff meetings, but I advocate putting an empty chair in all meetings, and that empty chair represents the customer. Howard Schultz from Starbucks actually has two empty chairs. One is for the employee and one is for the customer. So he makes sure that in their executive meetings that they always take into account the impact on the employee and the customer. I know you guys all have a ton of data, and whether it's survey data or other data, and we'll talk a little bit about data here in a few minutes as well. You've got to share those throughout the organization. That's how we get the customer front and center for everybody every day. Customers before metrics. I'm not going to go through all of these one by one because we have a lot more to cover here, but make sure you put your customers before metrics. When you're in meetings, whether they're executive meetings or their staff meetings, your town halls, or whatever you're doing to communicate with your colleagues and with your employees, make sure that you talk about the customers or your members, right? Tell stories about the members and talk about their results and talk about their needs. We all know the metrics, right? They're pounded into us every day, whether you track NPS or customer satisfaction, or it's, attrition or turnover or whatever, sales for the month, whatever it is. Those numbers are secondary to bringing the customer and your members to light first and foremost in your meetings, because that's how you're going to shift the culture, and that's how you're going to shift the conversation within your clubs as well. Personas, we'll talk about personas in a minute, but we bring those personas in so people really understand who our customers are and what their needs and pain points are, and those can be brought in a lot of different ways. Bring pictures of customers and customer cutouts, or bring real customers into your meetings to obviously keep them front and center, right? So there's a lot of different ways that you can take either a real customer, what they're saying, what they've told us, the metrics, whatever it is, and bring them into your meetings, bring them into your offices, bring them into your buildings to make sure that everybody knows that they're the reason that we are in business today. All right, number two, the second thing that we can do to win based on the Amazon effect is to take the time to really understand our members, right? Great customer experience doesn't just happen. It really is planned. It really is designed to be that way. And you can't make any improvements. You can't design an experience. You can't transform anything without understanding, without the data, and without the insights. And this is probably one of the most important things that you can do. And I'll explain how to do that in just a second. But I'd like to share this picture to really explain the concept of customer understanding and why it's so important. So picture yourself at point A down here at the bottom of the screen, right? Off to the right, you go off to point C, and straight in front of you is point B. If you want to get from point A to point B today, or obviously months ago, because somebody already fixed this, but if you want to get from point A to point B when they first laid these sidewalks, you would have to walk all the way down to point C and then figure out where sidewalk B and point C cross and track back to point B. Well, there were obviously many, many, many pedestrians who stood here and said, I need to do what? I need to go to point B. I'm just going to go straight to point B. And this is a great example of what happens when we don't understand what our customers are trying to do, what they're trying to achieve, what their problems are that they're trying to solve, because they'll fix it for themselves, right? They will buy our products maybe, but they will use them in the way that they see fit, right? And then they'll get frustrated because it's not easy, it's not simple, it's not frictionless. They had to create their own path here. So that's why customer understanding is so important. We need to know what our customers are doing, thinking, feeling, what pain points do they have, what problems are they trying to solve, so that we can help them do that. So there are three ways to achieve customer understanding. I haven't come across any more than 3. I wrote that book a year and a half ago, and I cannot think of any others than these 3 to achieve customer understanding. The first one is listen, and the second one is characterize, and the third one is empathize. So listen is all about asking, listening, and capturing. Asking, it's asking for feedback, right? Whether that's surveys or you're interviewing or you're just talking to a member, whatever it is, however you're getting feedback from your members. The second way is to listen, and that's, members will leave feedback wherever they want to leave feedback in whatever way they do that. And that might be on social media, that might be through online reviews, it might be through one of your employees, right? Voice of the customer through the employee. And then finally, the last way is capture. And this is what I call the breadcrumbs of data that customers leave behind as they interact and transact with your brand. And when we marry all this data together, it's pretty magical, right? We can really learn so much about the customer, their expectations, their attitudes, their behaviors, how well we're performing against their expectations, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what you're going to need to better deliver an experience that obviously meets their needs. Now, I mentioned personas. This is number 2. This is characterize. And I mentioned personas. That's what characterize is all about. It's about developing these personas. We don't just want to look at our members at a high level, segment by age buckets or, where they live or what they do, work or what time of the day they come in. None of that, right? We want to develop what we call personas. And they're research-based personifications of groupings, like grouping customers with like needs, pain points, problems to solve, right? Groupings of those customers. So for example, your 55 plus persona, I forget what they're called, the silver sneaker club, right? They are going to have far different needs than your bodybuilder persona, right? So you have to take the time to really understand who your customers are so that you can design and develop programs, content, rewards, the experience, whatever it is, to meet their personas. The third way that we understand customers is what I call empathize. Now, empathize is all about walking in our customers' shoes and doing that with our customers. We never want to do any of these things without the customer. We never want to say, I think the customer does, or I think the customer feels. We always want to do any of these ways that we understand the customer with the customer. That's really the key here. So what we're doing here is we're building out what we call a journey map. And in the days when we were in the office, we would throw up some butcher paper on a wall and use Post-it notes and fill in these swim lanes. And the key things that we would want to fill in here or have the customer fill in is what they're doing, what they're thinking, and what they're feeling as they complete some transaction or interaction. Let's say they're canceling their membership, right? What are they doing, thinking, and feeling as they're doing that? What steps did they take, and who did they interact with, and what channel did they use to do that? Did they call? Did they do it on the website? Did they do it on the mobile app? How did they do that, right? So those are the kinds of things that we want to capture here. And as a matter of fact, since we haven't been able to do these things in the office, there are digital tools as well that allow us to capture all of that as well. Now, for me, I developed this 6-step process when it comes to journey mapping, right? Because it is a tool. When we map the customer journey like this, we end up with a pretty picture, and that's pretty much all we end up with. But we have to go through this process to make sure that those journey maps are the catalyst for change that they are meant to be, that they really provide that understanding and help us to redesign the experience to what it ought to be going forward. I'm not going to go through in detail all 6 of these steps, but I will say there are 3 that are really important here. The first one is empathize, and that's where we capture what's the current state, what's the current experience that our members are having. The second one that I want to call out is introspect. That's a really important one because we can fix all the things on the surface that are happening that our customers see, and they're sort of cosmetic changes. But the service blueprint, what that captures is the people, the tools, the systems, the processes behind the scenes that create and facilitate the experience that customers are having. And that's where we fix the root cause of the problem so that it never happens again. And then the third one that I want to call out here is ideate. Ideate is all about reimagining, redesigning the experience for the future, right? What is that future state experience going to look like? That and empathize are both done with customers. Introspect, creating that service blueprint, that's internal. That's done with your employees and with your staff. Important tools to really understand the experience today and to improve it for sure. All right. So those are the three ways that we achieve our customer understanding, right? All three ways are really closely linked because we start with, when we're doing journey mapping, we start with our personas because every persona is going to have a different journey, a different experience. We bring data from our customers, from our surveys, from that feedback into the journey maps as well. So all three of them flow and work together very closely. All of this is a lot of data, right? But you can't stop there, right? Understanding is awesome, but you've got to use what you learn to design and deliver a better experience. So you've got to use the data to improve the experience. Use what you've learned to help customers solve problems. You can use what you learned to develop new products and services as well, and I would highly encourage that. And then ultimately, you want to communicate back to your members what the new experience is and how their feedback has been used. That's so important. And the important thing here is that when you do that, there's some great outcomes for the organization, obviously for your customers as well, but for the organization as well. So now you've got this customer-centric culture that I've talked about, using what you learned in all of three of those exercises and putting the customer at the heart of your business, right? You're also going to develop stronger relationships with your customers because you've listened. You're going to show that you've heard what they said because you've done something with it, right? You actually took the time to find products for your customers, not customers for your products. And that's a key distinction there. And then finally, the financial outcomes for the business, right? We're talking about retention here. We're talking about cost savings and increased revenue and profits. All right, so on the heels of that, obviously we've got a ton of data, and it's important to highlight this is exactly what Amazon does. They follow the data. And it's important to note too that data really is at the heart of designing and delivering a great experience. Amazon lives and breathes data. Their data is real time, it's end to end, it's cross silo, and it is really rich in detail. But you've got a ton of data as well, right? And a lot of it is real time about your members, from check-ins, from personal training, from reservations, from co-shop purchases, from the surveys that they complete. All of that great data and great feedback can be brought together to not only personalize the experience, and in order to do that, you're going to have the right analytical tools in place. And those quote unquote right analytical tools are predictive and prescriptive capabilities within your platform to be able to identify what's the next best action for this member, what's the next best action for this persona, right? So that's really important. But you can also use that to build game-changing innovations, right? So innovating new ways to meet their needs through better communications, through different services and offerings, and even through partnerships, right? The bottom line really is that you've got to use that data to create an experience that drives results for members. That's what it's all about. If you want to increase your retention, you really need to, obviously, this is a no-brainer, drive results for your members. And be sure that that data is tied to your business outcomes to ensure, results for the business as well. I thought I'd just throw up this slide here with some of the different sources of member data that you may or may not have access to, or that you may or may not even have thought of yet, right? These are all things that are really important to consider, whether it's data like attendance or usage or spending or blood pressure or heart ratio or feedback about your trainers or other employees, equipment usage and breakdowns. All of those things can be used to design a better experience that yields results for both members and for the business. So let's talk a little bit about technology. Number 4 is about embracing and leveraging technology. And you've got to do that in order to use all of that data, right? You've got to have the right technology in place to make that happen. So let's talk a little bit about that. I think it's important to remember, and I mentioned this early on, right, that technology is not the experience. It supports and facilitates the experience that the customer has, but it is not the experience in and of itself, right? But you can really differentiate your brand. You can simplify the experience. You can communicate more efficiently and effectively, and you can make the experience more convenient for your members by using technology. But when we talk about and rely too much on the technology, we tend to forget about the people, and we don't want to throw technology at a people problem. And customer experience is I don't want to call it a people problem, but it is all about the people, right? And so technology is just an enabler. So as you think about it as a club owner, the ideal technology for you really enhances the human element of the business, right? It should reduce the pain points, not only for your members, but for your staff too. It should free up staff to spend more time building and strengthening relationships with members to ensure that they have a great experience. And the technology for your members, that's got to help them do things even outside of the gym. And we all know about that right now with the pandemic. We've got to make sure that their outside of the gym workouts are better. And it needs to provide them with content and communication that educates and inspires and informs. And it should help them achieve results that they're trying to achieve, right? But keep in mind this, and this is really important. This was a finding by PwC a year or two ago, which was, and I don't think this has changed at all, that the more advanced the technology becomes, the more people want to interact with people. So there really is a balance between, the tech aspect of things and the human interaction and the human aspect of the experience. All right, the fifth thing that we've learned from the Amazon effect is the need to be frictionless. And I've already mentioned a great tool to identify where that friction happens in your member experience, right? That's the journey map. When I brought up the journey map, that can be used to identify where pain points are, where your members are really feeling pain when it comes to the experience, where that friction is happening. So use those tools, use that journey map to find where those pain points are, to find where that friction is happening, and be frictionless, because that's what your members are expecting. What is frictionless, right? What does that look like? It looks like there's no extra effort on the customer's part to do anything, right? They don't have to repeat anything they've already told you. You've already got that information. You've already got that data in your systems. You just need to use it to create that frictionless experience. There are no obstacles or impediments to them doing anything that they want to do in terms of how they're interacting or the experience that they're having in your club. And it really looks like minimum effort for the member and always positive interactions at every touch point with your club. So how do you achieve that? Well, again, using that journey map, it's going to help you identify where that friction exists, but then you have to be ruthless about eliminating it, right? No excuses. The biggest and the worst excuse that you can use at this point is, but we've always done it this way. It's time to drop that phrase from your language, because that's what's causing pain for your members, right? So you can't use that as an excuse. If you find a pain for your members, get rid of it. That's the bottom line, right? Make things easy and effortless for your members, whether that's signing up for a membership, whether it's adding family members, checking in, buying and scheduling training sessions, reserving a court, and even canceling their memberships. And as a matter of fact, I'll just pause there for a second and say that is probably one of the biggest pain points for members. And I hear it at the gym, not right now, because I'm not going to the gym right now, but I've heard it at the gym so many times, and from friends who have said, I wanted to cancel my membership and I couldn't I just couldn't. It was a pain point. And that leaves such a sour lasting impression on members that they won't ever come back, and they won't recommend either. So you've got to make everything easy and frictionless for your members. All right, the sixth learning that we have from Amazon is about not focusing on the competition. And I know this is really hard to do, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't be aware of what's happening outside of your club, right? But don't make it your life's work to be like your competition, right? You've got to think different, you've got to do different, and you've got to be different. You've got to stop chasing the competition, because your competition really isn't the same as it used to be, right? This is really what the Amazon effect is all about. This gentleman, Daniel Burrus, he's a futurist. He said, focus on competition has always been a formula for mediocrity. Nobody wins when you imitate, right? When there are clear, differentiated choices of products, of services, of experiences in the marketplace, it really makes the decision easier for your members, right? So bring your own unique value to the table. When customer experiences with one brand stink, they're going to go elsewhere. Let them decide. So that means that you've got to execute flawlessly or close to flawlessly in order for them to not walk out the door. Imitation really is the death of innovation. And when you imitate, there's really no need to innovate, right? So instead, actually take inspiration from other industries. And that's what we're talking about here today. Again, this is what the Amazon effect is all about. What's happening in other industries? What are they doing? And what can we take from there and adapt to the fitness industry? What can we take from there and adapt to my club? And it doesn't mean that you're going to do the exact same things. It means that they're doing something that if you tweaked it for your club, for this industry, for your members, it could be a game changer, right? So, and maybe it's not anything any other of your competitors have ever thought about. So get motivated by what your competitors are doing, but don't dwell on them, right? Competition really does drive innovation and vice versa. So innovation really drives success. Excuse me, because it allows you and your competitors to offer a variety of products, that helps your customers meet their needs. And when that happens, everybody wins, literally. There's choices for your customers, and we want to make those choices easy and clear. And we want to make that choice your brand, your club, right? So I love this quote, another quote from Amazon. This was Jeff Bezos at an all hands meeting years ago, many years ago, when they were addressing the assault of Barnes and Noble. And I don't know if you guys have Barnes and Noble in Australia, but it's a bookstore. It's a very large bookstore that is basically, it still exists, but barely. But nobody ever says, hey, I'm going to go to Barnes and Noble and get a book. That just doesn't happen anymore. It used to be, you'd go there and you'd grab a cup of coffee or whatever. Now it's, I'm going to get it on Amazon, And so this is what he said. Look, you should wake up worried, terrified every morning, but don't be worried about your competitors because they're never going to send us any money anyway. Let's be worried about our customers and stay heads down focused. So great message here. I love that. All right, on to number 7 we go. This is a tough one, but I don't think it's impossible for the fitness industry. And some of you may already be doing this. A few years ago, I worked with a client in the grocery industry. And at that time, they were just freaking out about Amazon. And I attended a conference that they had. And for 2 days, that is all they talked about was, how do we stay alive in Amazon's wake? But one of the concepts that they talked about was this notion of a one-stop shop, right? Make the grocery store a destination. And one of the things that they actually talked about in sort of this one-stop shop destination was to have, small box gyms, to create this destination where, I'll show you an example here in just a second, but think about how this concept might play out for your gyms. What I'm going to show you on the next slide is actually puts the club at the center, but in the grocery store concept, a club was sort of an add-on to the grocery store. So are there any products or services that are complementary to the gym or that introduce convenience for your members? Think about that one-stop shop for, hey, I'm at the gym, I'm going to go next door and I'm going to pick up my dry cleaning and there's a pharmacy there, or I'm going to get my nails done, or I'm going to grab some coffee, or I'm going to buy some flowers. Or maybe there's you drop off your car to get it serviced and you go next door and work out, that kind of thing. Those are the kinds of things that you have to think about. Things that can be offered either in the club, in your app, or through a partnership with a business next door that helps to bring your members back every day. How can you be the fitness industry version of the everything store? Remember, that's what Amazon used to call themselves. I think they still do, but you don't hear it that much anymore. I think everybody just knows they are the everything store, right? So the important thing here is that we remember this. Always ask your members for their input, right? What would convenience look like for them? What would a one-stop shop look like for them? And you've got to just remember that it's always all about the customer. It's always about the member and what works for them. All right, so there you have it. Those are the 7 ways that you can use the Amazon effect and its lessons to your advantage to really reimagine the experience in order to drive and to increase member retention. Oops, I'm sorry, I went the wrong direction. But here's the secret to what we just talked about, or to what I just talked about. You've got to be relentless in your pursuit to understand your members in order to design and deliver a great experience. I don't know if you've ever been to relentless.com, but I would recommend that you go to relentless.com. And I don't think you'll be surprised when you see what you see when you go to that URL. All right, so let me just quickly wrap this up and summarize for you how you're going to increase retention by using the Amazon effect, right? You've got to deliberately design a culture that puts the member at the center. You've got to take the time to understand your members. You've got to listen. You've got to characterize. You've got to empathize. You've got to know your members better than they know themselves so you can be proactive and deliver a great experience and design and deliver a great experience for them. Follow the data. There are a ton of data sources that you guys have. Use that to personalize the experience and really to make it frictionless. Embrace and leverage technology, whatever that technology may be, whether it's a listening platform, it's an analytics platform, because you've got so much data, you have to analyze it. You've got to break it down and make sense of it, right? So you've got to have that predictive or prescriptive capability somewhere within your platform. But remember that people buy from people and that the experience really is human. So don't think that because you've got technology, you've solved this member experience thing, because you haven't. And then lastly, don't focus on competition. Focus on your members, focus on their needs, focus on what's convenient and what's a one-stop shop for them. Focusing on the members will pay off. Focusing on your competition will not. Alrighty, and that's it. That's the 7 ways that you can use the Amazon effect to increase your member retention. What do you think, Justin?
I loved it, Annette. It's so cool. And I've got a couple of questions if I can fire them at you.
Absolutely, let's do it.
First off, what do you reckon the meeting was like at Amazon or Starbucks when they first brought in an empty chair? Like, what do you reckon people would have done?
Well, I think obviously I wasn't there and none of us were, but I think it was probably a conversation was had to say, this is what this is all about, right? This is why we're doing this. This is why it's important. And I think that's the key, right? Is don't just bring an empty chair into the room and everybody goes, well, who's going to sit there? Yeah. And I have seen, I have clients who have adopted this, and they will put customer cutouts on the chair. They'll paint the chair and they'll put, maybe a customer name on it or something. They will make the chair the customer one way or the other. So that's the important thing, is to have a conversation about why that empty chair is there, what it means, and how we're going to use it every time we have a meeting. In other words, we're going to ask, hey, don't forget the customer is sitting right there. What does this mean for her? What does this mean for him?
I think that's a really great visual concept for many of us who probably have younger, maybe less experienced, less empathetic, less emotionally intelligent staff members than potentially what would have been in the leadership team at Amazon or Starbucks.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely.
So I love that. I loved how you said also that, I think I'm right in saying, you said technology is not the experience, people are the experience.
That's right. It's very human. Yeah, absolutely.
And I just want to explore that for a couple of minutes, because again, if we look at our employee base across many health clubs, they are kind of that 18 to maybe 25, perhaps top end 30, who are used to using technology themselves and therefore probably think technology is in fact the service and the experience. How do we get our as leaders, how do we get our thinking to change for our staff and have them, like I always say, just give the staff member a phone and they can text the members. Right. You're not quite doing that lap pull down right. Send.
Yeah. Well, here's the way to shift the thinking, right? The customer experience really is about the job that's being done, the problem that's being solved, right? Members aren't coming into the club just because of the app, or they're not, think about what your members are doing. Why are they coming into the gym? What problem are they trying to solve? So I used two personas earlier, the silver sneakers and the bodybuilder, right? The bodybuilder's coming because he or she has a competition and has some goal in mind, right? The silver sneakers, their doctors have told them they need to lose weight or they need to stay active so that they stay healthy. And, my dad had a heart attack 10 years ago. I grew up on a farm. So my dad had a heart attack 10 years ago. When I was younger, he would say, you want to work out, you can go out and shovel. Yeah. That was my dad's working out, right? But after he had his heart attack, it was all about, my mom and dad got cardio equipment, working out every day, because now it was like, I'm going to stay healthy. I'm going to live, right? Keep the blood flowing and I'm going to live. So you really have to, the experience really is, you've got to think about it as the job to be done or the problem that's being solved by interacting with your brand, by choosing your product, by choosing your services, right? And less about the technology. So if you think about Uber's a great example too, right? The app, yeah, it helps me, request a driver, but ultimately what I want to do is I want to get from point A to point B, and I need a car. I need a person who's driving that car, and I need to get there. And if the car can't be smelly, the person better not be rude, not weird, all of that, right? So the technology has just enabled me to do what I need to do, right? But it is not the experience. The experience is so many other things, right?
I think Uber is a great example of what you're talking about. Yeah. I think that's because the success of Uber revolves around the success or revolves around the drivers and the experience that the driver creates. And that's why we go, oh, let's get in an Uber, not let's get in a taxi.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. And I guess this is a deeper question, perhaps even more a philosophical question than anything else. And definitely your opinion, I'm curious on. There'd be lots of people watching today and they'd be thinking, oh, this is well and good, Annette, but Starbucks, Uber, Amazon have massive budgets. So I'm going to start with the first part of the question, which is, do you think it's unfair that our members judge our service and our experience levels, because we're small business, against this big business? Is that unfair, or is that just the reality?
So I think it's just the reality, but that doesn't mean, and I think I mentioned this too, is you have to look at that, and it doesn't mean you're going to do the exact same things. You're going to adapt to what fits in your business model and your business, right? So you're not going to do all of the things, the big budget things that Uber and Starbucks and Amazon can do, right? When I was working with the gyms years ago, the top three things were cleanliness, staff.
I think that might still be the top one.
It may be cleanliness, friendliness of the staff, and equipment wasn't broken, right? Those are the top three things that were key drivers of customer satisfaction and likelihood to recommend. Those don't have to cost a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
Cleanliness, get a mop out every morning and go mop it. That's, if you're the club owner and that's your, that doesn't have to cost you thousands of dollars every month. Is the equipment broken? Well, that may, because depending on your handyman savviness there, that may be. Staff friendliness, that's that is what I say about hiring people. And I know it's tough in this industry because you pretty much get what you get, right? But at the same time, assume that you have a little bit of leeway there. Hire for attitude, train for skill. That's what I like, because if you can hire people who, you can't have people working in your club that don't like to be around people, because that's what's all around you is people. That's really sort of the number one thing that you've got to look at, right? Is hire people who want to be around people. And it always cracks me up when I have walked in the contact centers and seen some of these customer service folks and listened to them on the phone. And I'm like, these people don't even like talking to people. How could you hire somebody who doesn't, Yeah, so it doesn't make sense. So those are the kinds of things. And those things don't cost a lot of money. And it doesn't, if you took an 18-year-old under your wing or a 21-year-old under your wing to train them about What does empathy look like? I mean, some of these skills are trainable, absolutely 110%. But again, you want to hire people with, for attitude if you can. So, and I have a 16 and a 19-year-old, so not that attitude.
I think one of the key messages for me, this is a technology summit, and the technology can do so much for us, but our business is a human business.
Yes, very much so.
And I love that point that you made, is that technology is there to help us improve our efficiencies and our effectiveness, but the people are the ones that create the relationships and the experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have a couple of clients who are in the automation space, and the fear is that, we automate everything and people lose their jobs. And it's like, that is not what automation is about, right? Automation is about automating the processes. And I mentioned that in my presentation too. Have the technology that frees up your people to spend time with people, to have that face-to-face, to be able to talk to the members and really build those relationships.
Annette, superb.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Absolutely unreal. Now, if anyone is watching and they want to get in contact with you, and they're just watching the video and they're not looking at any other platforms around us, how do they get in contact with you?
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this, and to the audience, thank you for watching as well. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always accepting invitations there, or visit my website, cx-journey.com, and you can connect with me through that as well. My contact information is all there. And
I can assure you she does reply to any LinkedIn contacts, because she replied to some strange Australian who reached out to her.
I love it. Thank you again. I really appreciate it.
And this has been terrific, a great learning. And one thing that I really like about this webinar is that I think it's valuable for owners, managers, leaders to be able to share this with their entire team. Yeah. This is a great one to be able to share with your team, not just at an executive level. So thank you so much. Now, next month, we actually have another really fascinating webinar, and it's shaping the future of fitness with physical gaming, like not gaming in the sense of computer gaming, but playing games and gamifications. And this webinar will be Marcos Kern. It'll be on Friday, the 30th of April at 9 a.m. Sydney time again. Marcos is an expert in this area. He's written books and done a whole lot of research around getting people to stick with exercise and activity by using gamification. So it's going to be a fascinating presentation. Once again, thank you so much, Annette. It's been awesome. Loved your work, and we hope to see you in Australia probably 2033, maybe 2034 at a push.